The darkness of space lit up with weapon fire as 6 massive warships surrounded the small Varani transport vessel. The attacking ships belonged to the Korvath Dominion, and everyone in the galaxy knew what that meant. Terror, death, no mercy. Inside the lead Korvath warship, Warlord Krenth watched the helpless transport through his viewport. His scaled face twisted into something like a smile. The Varani captain was already begging for mercy over the communication channel. Krenth had heard it all before. They always begged. Take everything, Krenth ordered his crew. Leave nothing but wreckage. His warriors moved quickly. They had done this hundreds of times. The Korvath Dominion had been raiding ships for 30 years now, and no one could stop them. Not anymore. The Varani transport tried to run, but it was too slow. Within minutes, Korvath boarding parties were cutting through the hull. The transport's crew could only watch as their cargo holds were emptied. Medical supplies, rare metals, food shipments meant for colony worlds. All of it disappeared into Korvath cargo bays. When they were done, Krenth gave the order. His ships fired, and the Varani transport exploded into pieces. There would be no witnesses. There never were. Krenth leaned back in his command chair. Another successful raid. Another reminder to the galaxy that the Korvath were not to be challenged. His fortress, the Iron Maw, was waiting for them at the edge of the Terminus Nebula. It was a massive station, larger than most cities, armed with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. In 30 years, no one had ever breached its defenses. Send word to the Iron Maw, Krenth said. Tell them we're returning with full cargo holds. Again, his second officer nodded. Yes, Warlord. Should we expect any pursuit? Krenth laughed. It was a harsh, grating sound. From who? The Varani. Their shields are useless against our numbers. The Thexians? We crushed their battle fleet 6 months ago. No one will come. No one ever does. He was right. The Korvath had become the most feared force in the galactic rim. They had started as simple pirates, but they had grown into something much worse. Now, they controlled key trade routes. They demanded tribute from entire systems. They raided with impunity, and their fortress made them nearly impossible to defeat. 300 light-years away, on the Galactic Council Station, representatives from dozens of species gathered in emergency session. The holographic displays showed the latest reports. Another Varani convoy destroyed. 17 civilian vessels lost this month alone. 243 dead. Ambassador Theron of the Varani stood before the council, his tentacles trembling with emotion. How many more must die? The Korvath grow bolder every day. They're no longer just raiders. They're becoming an empire built on terror. We've tried, said council leader Vexar, a tall insectoid being who had led the council for 20 years. 3 separate coalitions have attempted to assault the Iron Maw. All have failed. 1.1. 1.1. Then we try again, Theron insisted. With what forces? This came from General Thexos, whose own fleet had been decimated in the last attempt. The Korvath have over 300 warships now. Their fortress has shield generators that could withstand a supernova. Their sensor arrays detect any approaching fleet days before arrival. We cannot surprise them. We cannot overpower them. A Lasari representative spoke up, her voice soft but bitter. We attempted infiltration, stealth ships, sabotage teams. The Korvath detected every attempt. Krenth seems to anticipate every strategy we devise. Silence fell over the council chamber. It was the silence of defeat, of hopelessness. There must be something, Theron said quietly. Vexar's mandibles clicked together slowly. If anyone has suggestions, this council welcomes them. But I fear we are facing an enemy that has learned from every victory. They adapt. They grow stronger. In the back of the chamber, a minor representative made a notation. She was from Earth, a planet that had joined the galactic community only 15 years ago. The humans were still new to interstellar politics. They mostly kept to themselves, running merchant vessels and research ships. They had been present at council meetings, but rarely spoke on military matters. The human representative, Ambassador Chen, watched the proceedings with careful attention. She said nothing. Humans were still learning how the galaxy worked, but she listened to every word. Back in Korvath space, Warlord Krenth's fleet returned to the Iron Maw. The massive fortress hung in space like a dark moon, bristling with weapons. Thousands of Korvath warriors lived within its armored halls. It was more than a military base. It was a symbol. It told the galaxy that the Korvath were untouchable. Krenth walked through the fortress's command center, reviewing reports from his various raiding fleets. The operations were going well. Better than well. The Korvath were now extracting tribute from 12 systems. Another 8 were negotiating surrender terms. Within a year, maybe 2, the Korvath Dominion would control a quarter of the galactic rim. Warlord, his intelligence officer, approached. We've intercepted communications from the Galactic Council. They held another emergency session. And? Nothing. They're paralyzed by fear. No new coalitions forming. No military buildups. They're accepting defeat. Krenth felt satisfaction spread through him. This was what power felt like. Complete and total dominance. The galaxy had tried to stop him and failed. Now they would learn to live under Korvath rule. What about the frontier systems? Krenth asked. Wide open, Warlord. Light defenses. Rich targets. Send raiding fleets. Hit 3 systems simultaneously. Show them that nowhere is safe. As the orders went out, Krenth returned to his private quarters. He looked at the star maps on his wall. So much of the galaxy was still unconquered, but it would be his. All of it. The Korvath would spread across the stars, and no one would dare challenge them. He had everything he needed. Numbers. Firepower. An impregnable fortress. And most importantly, he had the fear of every species in the galaxy. What Krenth didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that in a small solar system on the frontier, a distress signal was about to be broadcast, and that signal would reach a converted freighter called the Indomitable, captained by a human named G1 Park. The Korvath thought they were untouchable. They had crushed every enemy. They had anticipated every strategy. They had grown comfortable in their invincibility. They had never fought humans before, and that was about to change everything. The cargo ship, Indomitable, wasn't much to look at. It was a converted freighter, 30 years old, with patches welded over patches on its hull. But Captain G1 Park kept the engines running smooth and the life support steady, and that was what mattered in the deep black. G1 was in the galley, drinking coffee that tasted like recycled engine coolant when the communication alert sounded. Her first officer, Min Jun, called from the bridge, "Captain, we're picking up a distress signal. Varani transport under attack. 5, no. 6 hostile vessels. Korvath signatures." G1 was already moving toward the bridge before he finished speaking. She'd been a military officer once, 10 years ago, before she left to run cargo. Some instincts never died. On the bridge, the sensor displays showed the situation clearly. A small Varani transport, probably civilian, surrounded by Korvath raiders. The raiders were already firing. The transport's shields were failing. "Distance?" G1 asked. 40 minutes at maximum speed, said Seo Yun, the pilot. The crew looked at G1. All 12 of them knew what this meant. The Korvath didn't take prisoners. If someone didn't help, everyone on that transport would die. "Captain," Minjun said carefully, "we're not equipped for combat. We have 1 railgun and basic shields. Those raiders will tear us apart." "I know. There's 6 of them. We're 1 ship." "I know that too." Tae-hee, the weapons officer, spoke up. "If we call for help, the nearest patrol ship is 3 hours away. Those people don't have 3 hours." Ji-won looked at the display. She thought about all the reasons not to go. They were outgunned, outnumbered. This wasn't their fight. They were just a cargo ship. They could report it, let the proper authorities handle it, and no one would blame them. She thought about all of that for exactly 10 seconds. Set course for the distress signal, Ji-won said. Maximum speed. Min-jun smiled slightly. As the Indomitable's engines pushed toward maximum, Ji-won studied the tactical display. 6 raiders against 1 cargo ship. The math was bad. But math wasn't everything. Tae-hee, what's the environment like around that transport? The weapons officer checked his sensors. They're near the edge of the Terminus Nebula. Lots of magnetic interference. Sensor range is limited. Good, Seo-yun. Can you navigate through the nebula? The pilot grinned. I can navigate through anything, Captain. Then we're going to use that nebula. Min-jun, prepare the electronic warfare suite. Every jamming device we have. I want it ready. Her crew worked quickly. They'd been together for 5 years. They knew how Ji-won thought. More importantly, they trusted her. 38 minutes later, the Indomitable dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the nebula. The Varani transport was still there. Barely. Its shields were down. 2 of the Korvath raiders had docked with it. The others circled like predators. The lead Korvath ship immediately hailed the Indomitable. The face that appeared on the screen was reptilian, covered in green scales, with eyes that held no mercy. Unknown vessel, leave this area immediately. This is Korvath business. Ji-won smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. This is Captain Ji-won Park of the human vessel Indomitable. You're attacking a civilian transport. Stand down. The Korvath commander laughed. Human? I've heard of your species. Merchants and scientists? Barely worth noticing. You have 1 small ship. We have 5. Leave now, or we'll add your wreckage to theirs. Last warning, Ji-won said. Stand down. Or what? Ji-won cut the communication. Seo-yun. Take us into the nebula. Tae-hee. Active jamming. Everything we have. Min-jun. Route all power to engines and electronic warfare. The Indomitable dove into the thick nebula clouds. The magnetic interference was intense. On the Korvath ships, targeting systems began to fail. Sensors went haywire. Communication between ships became difficult. The Korvath commander ordered his ships to pursue. He was angry now. How dare this insignificant cargo ship challenge them? But inside the nebula, the rules changed. The Korvath had superior weapons and shields, but none of that mattered if they couldn't see their target. The Indomitable, smaller and more maneuverable, darted through the interference like a fish through dark water. Ji-won watched her displays carefully. The nebula's magnetic fields created pockets of clear space and zones of total sensor blackness. She was counting on that. Target lock on Raider 3, Tae-hee said. Engine section exposed. Fire. The Indomitable's single railgun fired. It wasn't powerful enough to destroy the Raider, but Ji-won wasn't trying to destroy it. The shot hit the Raider's engine, housing perfectly. The engine didn't explode. It just stopped working. The Raider went dark, drifting. 1 down, Ji-won said. The Korvath ships spread out, trying to surround the Indomitable, but they couldn't coordinate properly. Their communication was jammed. Their sensors were blind. They started firing wildly into the nebula, hoping to hit something. Ji-won used their panic against them. She had Seo-yun fly the Indomitable along the edge of a particularly dense magnetic field. When 2 Korvath raiders came too close, trying to bracket them, Ji-won activated a probe. The probe's signal made it look like the Indomitable was in a different position. Both Korvath ships fired at the fake signal. Their weapons hit each other instead. 2 more raiders disabled. The remaining 2 Korvath ships pulled back, regrouping. Their commander was no longer laughing. He was learning a hard lesson. Numbers didn't matter if you couldn't use them. Superior weapons didn't help if you couldn't aim them. Target the docked raiders, Ji-won ordered. They're still attached to the transport. They can't maneuver. Tae-hee lined up the shots carefully. The Indomitable emerged from the nebula for just seconds, fired twice, and dove back into cover. Both shots hit true. The docked Raiders' engines went offline. All Raiders disabled, Captain, Minjun reported. Get us over there. Emergency docking procedures. I want those civilians off their ship and onto ours in 5 minutes. The Indomitable pulled alongside the damaged Varani transport. The boarding tube extended. G1 herself went across with 2 crew members. They found 17 Varani. Terrified, but alive. You're safe now, G1 told them. Get to our ship, quickly. As the last Varani civilian crossed over, G1 looked back at the disabled Korvath Raiders. She knew this wasn't over. This was just one small fight. The Korvath had hundreds of ships, but she'd proven something today. They weren't untouchable. They could be beaten. You just had to think differently. Captain, Minjun called. We have a problem. Long-range sensors show a larger Korvath force approaching. 20 ships. They'll be here in 30 minutes. G1 ran back to the Indomitable. Cut the docking tube. Seoyeon. Plot a course. Anywhere but here. As the Indomitable's engines fired up, G1 looked at the tactical display. 20 ships. And they were coming for her. 300 light-years away, in the Iron Maw, Warlord Krenth received the report. A single human cargo ship had disabled 6 of his raiders. Disabled, not destroyed, which somehow made it worse. The humans had made his warriors look like fools. 20 ships? Krenth repeated. To hunt 1 cargo hauler? Yes, Warlord. The fleet commander wants to make sure. I don't care what he wants. Send word. I want that human ship captured. I want the crew brought to me alive. They need to learn what happens when someone challenges the Korvath. Krenth stared at the star maps. Humans. He'd barely paid attention to them before. New species, not worth his time. That was going to change. He'd make an example of this, Captain G1 Park. He'd make sure every human in the galaxy understood that the Korvath were not to be challenged. Aboard the Indomitable, G1 looked at her exhausted crew. They'd just fought 6 Korvath raiders and won. Now 20 more were coming. Get some rest, she told them. Because G1 knew something that Krenth didn't know yet. Humans didn't give up. They didn't surrender. And when you backed them into a corner, they got creative. The hunt was on. But Krenth was about to learn that sometimes the hunter becomes the hunted. The bridge of the Indomitable was silent, except for the steady beep of the sensors. 20 Korvath warships were following them, and the distance was closing. G1 stared at the tactical display. Her ship was damaged from the earlier fight. One engine was running at 70%. The shields had holes. Her single railgun had maybe 20 shots left before the ammunition ran out. We can't outrun them, Seoyeon said quietly. Not with the engine damage. And we definitely can't outfight them, Tae-hee added. Minjun looked at G1. What are you thinking, Captain? G1 smiled. It was a tired smile, but there was something dangerous in it. I'm thinking that we don't need to outrun them or outfight them. We need to make them defeat themselves. She pulled up a star chart. Where are we? Sector 779. Near the Broken Ring. Asteroid field. Perfect, Seoyeon. Set course for the asteroid field. Maximum speed. Captain, that field is a graveyard. Ships go in there and don't come out. Exactly. The Indomitable changed course, heading straight for the massive asteroid field. Behind them, the Korvath fleet followed. On the lead Korvath ship, Commander Zethak watched the human vessel's course change. He was confused. The asteroid field was death. Why would they go there? They're trapped, his tactical officer said. Once they enter that field, they'll have to slow down. We'll catch them easily. 1. Andy. 1. 1. 1. Zethak nodded. But something bothered him. These humans had already proven they were clever. What were they planning? The Indomitable entered the asteroid field at high speed. Rocks the size of buildings flew past. Any one of them could tear the ship apart. But Seoyeon's hands moved across the controls, like she was born to fly. "How are you doing this?" Minjun asked, gripping his chair as they dodged between spinning asteroids. "Practice," Seoyeon said. "And I may have run cargo through illegal asteroid mines before I joined this crew. Don't tell anyone." Behind them, the Korvath ships entered the field. They were larger, less maneuverable. They had to slow down. The gap between hunter and prey began to close. But slowly. Ji-won was counting on that. "Tae-hee, prepare marker buoys. I want them to look like our ship on sensors." "How many?" "All of them. Drop one every 3 minutes." As the Indomitable weaved through the asteroids, it left behind sensor decoys. The Korvath ships, struggling to track one target through all the rocks and interference, suddenly saw 5 targets. Then 8. Then 12. "Split up," Commander Zethak ordered. "Pursuit groups of 4 ships each. Find that human vessel." It was exactly what G1 wanted. 20 ships together were unstoppable. But 4 ships? That was manageable. The Indomitable led one pursuit group deeper into the asteroid field, into a region where the rocks were particularly dense. Then, G1 had Seoyeon do something insane. She flew toward a massive rotating asteroid, used its gravity to slingshot around it, and came back the way they'd come. The 4 Korvath ships tried to follow, but they were bigger, slower. 2 of them couldn't make the turn in time. They crashed into each other, shields flaring, hulls crumpling. The other 2 managed to avoid the collision but were now separated. "Target their sensor arrays," G1 ordered. "Blind them." Tae-hee fired precise shots. He didn't try to destroy the Korvath ships. He just took out their sensors. In the asteroid field, blind ships were dead ships. They'd be stuck there for hours, maybe days, trying to navigate out without crashing. One pursuit group down. G1 repeated the tactic with the second group, leading them into a region with high radiation. The Indomitable's shields could handle it for a short time, but the Korvath ships, designed for open space combat, struggled. Their systems started failing. They had to retreat, or risk reactor meltdown. 2 pursuit groups down. The third group was smarter. They hung back, trying not to fall for the same tricks. So G1 changed tactics. "Open communication channel," she told Minjun. "To the Korvath?" "Yes." The Korvath commander's face appeared on screen. He looked angry. "Human, you're only delaying the inevitable. Surrender now." "1. I'm curious," G1 said. "How much is Warlord Krenth paying you for this hunt?" "What? I mean, you've already lost half your fleet chasing one cargo ship." "That's embarrassing. When you get back to the Iron Maw, do you think Krenth will reward you? Or will he punish you for failing?" And the commander's face darkened. "We haven't failed. We'll catch you. Will you? Because from where I'm sitting, I've disabled 10 of your ships without even trying to kill you. Imagine what I could do if I was actually trying." Jiwon cut the communication. Minjun looked at her. "What was that about?" "Psychology. I want them angry. Angry people make mistakes." She was right. The third pursuit group charged forward, abandoning caution. They wanted to prove the human wrong. They wanted to catch her. G1 led them on a chase through a narrow channel between 2 massive asteroids. The channel was barely wide enough for one ship. The Korvath ships followed in single file. Then G1 had Tae-hee fire at the asteroids themselves. Not at the ships. At the rocks. The asteroids, already unstable, began to break apart. Huge chunks of rock filled the channel. The lead Korvath ship tried to brake, but the ship behind it couldn't stop in time. They collided. The third ship crashed into both of them. 3 pursuit groups down. The fourth group finally learned. They stopped chasing. They pulled back to the edge of the asteroid field and waited. On his ship, Commander Zethak realized he'd been played. The human captain had used everything against him. The environment, his own tactics, even his emotions, and now half his fleet was disabled or destroyed. Pull back, he ordered. Regroup at the edge of the field. But G1 wasn't done. She emerged from the asteroid field on the opposite side, circled around, and came up behind the waiting Korvath ships. Before they could react, the Indomitable fired at their engines, not to destroy, to disable. The last 4 ships went dark. Inside the Indomitable, the crew was silent for a moment. Then Taehi started laughing. We just took out 20 Korvath warships. Disabled, not destroyed, G1 corrected. I'm not trying to kill them. I'm trying to make a point. What point? Minjun asked. That they're not untouchable. That they can be beaten. That someone is finally willing to stand up to them. G1 looked at the sensor logs. Every moment of the battle had been recorded. Every Korvath tactic. Every weakness in their ships. Every mistake their commanders made. Minjun, compile all this data. Everything we've learned about Korvath tactics, ship designs, and psychology. I want a complete tactical analysis. What are you going to do with it? Send it home. To Earth. To our military command. If I can figure out how to beat the Korvath, so can they. In the Iron Maw, Warlord Krenth received Commander Zethak's report. He listened in silence, as his commander explained how one human cargo ship had disabled 20 Korvath warships. When the report ended, Krenth's hands gripped his chair so tightly the metal bent. One ship, he said quietly. One human ship. His officers stood nervously. They'd never seen Krenth this angry. Send word to all raiding fleets, Krenth said. I want this human captain found. I want every ship we have searching for the Indomitable. And when we find them, I will personally kill every human aboard. He stood up, pacing. These humans think they're clever. They think they can challenge us. We'll teach them what happens to those who defy the Korvath. Krenth looked at his star maps. He'd spent 30 years building his empire. No one had ever stood against him and survived. These humans were just the latest species that needed to learn fear. Prepare my flagship, Krenth ordered. I'll hunt them myself. With 40 ships. The humans will learn they made a mistake when they decided to fight us. Aboard the Indomitable, alarms suddenly blared. Long-range sensors showed a massive Korvath fleet approaching. 40 ships, led by a dreadnought that was 3 times the size of anything G1 had seen before. That's Krenth's flagship, Minjun said, checking the database. G1 looked at her exhausted crew. Her damaged ship. Her nearly empty ammunition reserves. 40 ships, led by a warlord who'd never lost a battle. The smart thing would be to run, to hide, to call for help, but G1 had never been very good at doing the smart thing. All hands, battle stations, she said. Get some rest first. Then battle stations. We have a warlord to meet. The Indomitable drifted in open space, running on minimal power. Half the ship's systems were damaged. The medical bay was full of crew members with minor injuries. Everyone was exhausted. They'd been running and fighting for 18 hours straight. G1 sat in her quarters, looking at the tactical data displayed on her personal screen. 40 Korvath ships were 6 hours away. Leading them was Warlord Krenth himself, in a dreadnought that could probably destroy the Indomitable with a single shot. There was a knock on her door. Come in. Minjun entered, carrying 2 cups of the terrible coffee. He handed one to G1 and sat down. The crew wants to know the plan, he said. The plan is to survive. G1, we can't fight 40 ships. Not after everything we've been through. G1 took a sip of coffee. It tasted worse than usual, which was impressive. I know. Then what are we doing? Why aren't we running? Because we can't outrun a dreadnought. And because running isn't the point anymore. G1 turned her screen so Minjun could see it. Look at all this data we've collected. Korvath tactics. Ship weaknesses. Command psychology. This is intelligence that could help dozens of species fight back. You sent it to Earth Command already. You've done your part. Not all of it. G1 pulled up another file. I've been analyzing the Korvath Fortress. The Iron Maw. Every piece of data I could find in galactic databases. And I found something. She showed Minjun a structural analysis. The Iron Maw is huge and well-armed. But it has a weakness. It's too dependent on external supply lines. If those supply lines were cut, the fortress would have maybe 2 months before critical systems started failing. Minjun stared at the analysis. This could actually work. If someone organized a proper siege, exactly. But for a siege to work, the galaxy needs to believe the Korvath can be beaten. Right now, everyone is too afraid to try. So you're going to fight Krenth to prove they can be beaten. I'm going to fight Krenth to buy enough time to broadcast everything we've learned. Not just to Earth. To everyone. Every species in the galaxy. If I can show them how we fought the Korvath, how we survived against impossible odds, maybe they'll find the courage to fight back. Minjun was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. That's either brilliant or insane. Probably both. Minjun stood up. I'll tell the crew. They'll want to help. Tell them they don't have to. Anyone who wants to can take an escape pod. G1. We've been flying together for 5 years. Do you really think any of us would abandon you now? After Minjun left, G1 returned to the bridge. Her crew was already there, working. Seo Yun was running diagnostics on the engines. Tae-hee was checking what little ammunition they had left. Others were repairing damaged systems, rerouting power, doing everything possible to keep the ship functional. They knew what was coming. They'd chosen to stay anyway. 6 hours later, the Korvath fleet arrived. 40 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in a massive formation. At the center was Krenth's dreadnought, a ship so large it had its own gravity. The communication came immediately. Krenth's face filled the main screen. He looked exactly like G1 expected. Scales. Sharp teeth. Eyes full of controlled rage. Human captain, Krenth said. You've caused me considerable trouble. Warlord Krenth, G1 replied. Krenth's eyes narrowed. I came to make an example of you. Surrender now, and your crew will die quickly. Resist, and I'll make their deaths last days. Interesting offer. Here's mine. Leave now, go back to your fortress, and I won't add you to the list of Korvath commanders I've embarrassed this week. Behind her, Minjun whispered. Are you trying to make him angrier? Yes, G1 whispered back. Krenth's expression changed. For a moment, he looked genuinely shocked. Then he started laughing. It was a cold, cruel sound. You have courage, human. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. I'll enjoy breaking you. One question before we start, G1 said. How does it feel? Spending 30 years building an empire, only to have one cargo ship prove you're not invincible? Krenth stopped laughing. Kill them. All weapons. Leave nothing but atoms. The communication cut off. 40 Korvath ships began to spread out, surrounding the Indomitable. Seo Yun. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Tae-hee. Fire at will. Minjun. Broadcast everything. Every frequency. Every channel. I want the entire galaxy to see this. See what, Captain? See one human ship refusing to surrender to a bully. The broadcast went out. On dozens of worlds, hundreds of stations, thousands of ships. The transmission was received. It showed the Indomitable, tiny and damaged, surrounded by 40 Korvath warships. And then it showed something else. It showed every tactical analysis G1 had compiled. Every weakness in Korvath ships. Every mistake their commanders made. The structural flaws in the Iron Maw. Everything. The Korvath fleet opened fire. Space lit up with weapons fire. The Indomitable's shields, already weak, began to fail immediately. "Return fire," G1 ordered. Tae-hee worked like a man possessed. Every shot had to count. The Indomitable's single railgun fired again and again. Most shots were blocked by Korvath shields, but some got through, hitting sensors, weapons, engines. Seo-yun flew like she'd never flown before. She made the damaged, Indomitable dance between weapon beams. She used the Korvath ships themselves as cover, positioning the Indomitable so the enemy had to be careful not to hit their own vessels. Minjun kept the broadcast running. The galaxy watched as one small ship fought 40. In the engineering section, the crew worked miracles. When the main engine started to fail, they rerouted power from life support. When the shields collapsed, they used emergency hull patches to seal breaches. When weapons systems went down, they fixed them with spare parts and determination. The battle lasted 17 minutes. To the crew of the Indomitable, it felt like 17 hours. Systems failed one by one. The port engine exploded. The shields went completely offline. Hull breaches appeared across 3 decks. Tae-hee fired the last railgun shot. Then the weapon system went dark. "That's it, Captain. We're out of ammunition." "Then we use what we have left." Seo-yun. "Ram the nearest ship." "Captain." Seo-yun's voice was uncertain. "You heard me. Full speed. Ram them." Krenth watched from his dreadnought as the damaged human ship suddenly accelerated toward one of his warships. He couldn't believe it. They were going to ram? With a damaged cargo hauler? The Indomitable hit the Korvath warship at full speed. The impact was devastating. The Korvath ship's shields held, but barely. The Indomitable bounced off, spinning, trailing atmosphere and debris. Inside the Indomitable, alarms screamed. Half the crew was injured. G1 tasted blood in her mouth. "Still broadcasting?" she asked. "Still broadcasting," Minjun confirmed. "Good." That's when the new sensor contacts appeared. 3 ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. But these weren't Korvath ships. They were human warships. The lead ship immediately opened communication. The captain's face appeared on screen. "Captain Park, this is Captain Anderson of the Earth Navy ship Resolute. Sorry we're late. Permission to join the fight?" G1 almost laughed. "Permission granted. Happy to have you." The 3 human warships were military vessels, built for combat. They were outnumbered, but they weren't damaged, they weren't exhausted, and they'd been watching G1's broadcast. They'd seen every tactic she used. The Resolute fired first, targeting the same Korvath weaknesses G1 had identified. The other 2 human ships coordinated perfectly, using the same Wolfpack tactics the Indomitable had demonstrated in the asteroid field. Krenth ordered his fleet to engage. But now his commanders were uncertain. They just watched one cargo ship fight for 17 minutes, against impossible odds. They'd seen it disable ships, outmaneuver them, refuse to surrender even when defeat was certain. And now 3 actual warships had arrived, using tactics they'd never seen before. The battle turned. The human warships weren't trying to destroy the Korvath fleet. They were using G1's strategy. Disable. Confuse. Make the enemy defeat themselves. Krenth watched his fleet begin to break apart. Ships collided. Weapons hit friendly vessels. Commanders made mistakes because they were afraid. Uncertain. "All ships, retreat," Krenth finally ordered. "Return to the Iron Maw." The Korvath fleet fled. They left behind 12 disabled ships and their pride. Aboard the Indomitable, the crew was too exhausted to cheer. G1 just slumped in her chair, watching the Korvath ships disappear. "Captain," Minjun said. The broadcast reached 67 different worlds. Hundreds of ships. The entire galaxy just watched us fight. "Good," G1 said. "Let them watch. Let them see that the Korvath can be beaten. Let them find their courage." The Resolute moved alongside the Indomitable. "Captain Park, we're sending repair crews. Your ship is in bad shape. Tell them to bring better coffee too," G1 said. "Ours tastes like engine coolant." The Galactic Council chamber was more crowded than it had been in decades. Representatives from 43 different species had gathered, and for the first time in 30 years, they weren't talking about how afraid they were of the Korvath. They were talking about how to defeat them. On the main display, G1's broadcast played on repeat. The footage of one damaged cargo ship fighting 40 Korvath warships had spread across the galaxy faster than light. Everyone had seen it. The tactical analysis G1 had compiled was being studied by military commanders on dozens of worlds. Ambassador Theron of the Varani stood before the council. His tentacles no longer trembled with fear. Now they moved with purpose. Captain G1 Park has shown us what we refuse to see, Theron said. The Korvath are not invincible. They have weaknesses. They make mistakes. They can be beaten. We were simply too afraid to try. Council leader Vexar nodded slowly. The human's tactical analysis reveals something crucial. The Iron Maw, for all its power, is vulnerable to a sustained siege. If we cut their supply lines, then they starve, finished General Thexos. My fleet can blockade the main supply routes. But we'll need support. You'll have it, said the Lissari representative. Our stealth ships can infiltrate Korvath supply convoys. We failed before because we tried to attack the fortress directly. This time, we cut them off from the galaxy. The Varani can provide shield technology to protect the blockade fleet, Theron added. One by one, species that had been too afraid to fight back now volunteered ships, resources, and expertise. The coalition that formed in that chamber was larger than anything the Korvath had faced before. And at the center of the planning was a team of human tactical advisors, led by the recovered data from the Indomitable. 3 weeks later, the siege of the Iron Maw began. Warlord Krenth stood in his fortress command center, watching the sensor displays with growing anger. 73 ships from a dozen different species had formed a blockade around Korvath space. His raiding fleets couldn't get out. Supply convoys couldn't get in. How long can we last? Krenth asked his supply officer. At current consumption rates, 40 days before food shortages become critical. Then we break the blockade. Prepare the fleet for a full assault. Warlord, the humans have shared their tactical analysis with the entire coalition. They know all our strategies. They've prepared counters for everything. Krenth's claws dug into his command console. Then we'll adapt. An alarm cut him off. Multiple Korvath supply ships were reporting attacks. Not by the blockade fleet, but by Lysari stealth ships that had infiltrated deep into Korvath territory. Another alarm. Thexian warships had engaged one of his raiding fleets. The engagement was brief. The Thexians had used human tactics. The raid fleet was forced to retreat with heavy damage. Another alarm. A Korvath allied species had switched sides, joining the coalition. They'd seen G1's broadcast and decided the Korvath could be beaten. Krenth's empire was falling apart, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. On the bridge of the human warship Resolute, Captain Anderson coordinated the coalition fleet. Beside him stood G1 Park, recovered from her injuries, serving as tactical advisor. The Korvath are trying to break through the blockade at Sector 9, Anderson said. G1 studied the tactical display. They're using the same breakthrough formation they used against the Thexians 6 months ago. Tell the Varani ships to strengthen their shields there and let the Korvath commit. Then, have the Thexian fleet hit them from the side. Anderson gave the orders. The Korvath breakthrough attempt failed. They lost 3 more ships. They're not adapting, G1 observed. Krenth has spent 30 years winning the same way. He doesn't know how to change. And you do? G1 smiled. Humans are good at change. We've had to be. The siege continued for 43 days. The Korvath made 7 attempts to break through. All failed. Their supply situation became desperate. Ships started running low on fuel. The fortress's power systems began operating on emergency reserves. Finally, Krenth did something unexpected. He broadcast a challenge. Personal combat. Him against G1 Park. If she won, the Korvath would surrender. If he won, the siege would end. The coalition commanders immediately rejected it. "It's a trap," Anderson said. "Krenth is twice your size and trained for combat since birth." G1 agreed. "Which is why I'm not accepting." "Argid." "Wan no. Wan no. Wan no." She opened a communication channel directly to the Iron Maw. Krenth's face appeared on screen. "Human, are you too afraid to face me?" Krenth demanded. "No," G1 said calmly. "I'm too smart to fall for obvious manipulation. You want me to fight you because you think you can win. Because in your mind, everything comes down to personal strength and honor and glory. And in your mind, what does it come down to? Justice. You've spent 30 years terrorizing innocent people, raiding civilian convoys, killing thousands. And you think you can wash all that away with a single fight? That's not how this works. Then, how does it work, human? You surrender. You face trial for your crimes on every world you've victimized. Your warriors lay down their weapons, and the people you've hurt get to see justice done. That's how it works. Krenth's face twisted with rage. Never. The Korvath do not surrender. Then the Korvath will starve in their fortress. Your choice. G1 cut the communication. 2 weeks later, the Iron Maw's power systems began failing. Life support became intermittent. Food riots broke out in the lower sections of the fortress. Korvath warriors, who had always been fed on the spoils of their raids, were now starving. Krenth's second in command came to him with a proposal. "Warlord, the warriors are suffering. We should consider. Surrender? Never. Then they'll mutiny. They're already talking about it. Some want to take escape pods and flee. Others want to negotiate with the coalition themselves." Krenth realized the truth. His empire wasn't being defeated by superior firepower or better tactics. It was being defeated by time, by patience, by a siege that slowly strangled the life from his fortress. The humans had done this. That one cargo ship captain had shown the galaxy how to beat him. And now everything he'd built was crumbling. On the 57th day of the siege, the Iron Maw's main reactor went into emergency shutdown. The fortress went dark. Life support would last maybe 12 more hours. Krenth sat in his command center, lit only by emergency lights, and finally accepted reality. He'd lost. The transmission went out to the coalition fleet. The Korvath were surrendering. 12 hours later, coalition troops boarded the Iron Maw. They found thousands of Korvath warriors, weak from hunger, offering no resistance. They found storage rooms full of stolen goods from dozens of species. They found evidence of crimes that would take years to properly document. And they found Krenth, sitting in his command chair, staring at nothing. G1 was part of the boarding party. She stood in front of the warlord who had terrorized the galaxy for 30 years. "You've won," Krenth said bitterly. "I hope you're proud." "I'm not proud," G1 said. "I'm relieved. Relieved that no more innocent people will die because of you. You've destroyed everything I built. You built an empire on fear and suffering. It deserved to be destroyed." Krenth was taken away in restraints. He would stand trial on 17 different worlds. The process would take years, but it would happen. 3 months later, the Galactic Council held a ceremony. G1 and her crew were invited. So were representatives from all the species that had joined the coalition. Council leader Vexar stood before the assembly. "We gather today to honor those who showed us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it." Captain G1 Park and the crew of the Indomitable faced impossible odds and refused to surrender. In doing so, they inspired an entire galaxy to find its own courage. Vexar turned to G1. "The Council offers you a position as Fleet Admiral. Your tactical expertise could help us prevent future threats." G1 smiled and shook her head. "Thank you. But no. I'm a cargo captain. I run freight. That's what I'm good at. But you've proven yourself as a military commander. I've proven that anyone can stand up to bullies if they're willing to try. That's not a military skill. That's just being human. After the ceremony, G1 and her crew returned to the Indomitable. The ship had been fully repaired, better than new. They had cargo waiting. A colony world needed medical supplies. As they prepared to depart, Minjun asked, "Do you think it's really over? The Korvath, I mean." G1 looked at the star charts. "Their empire is over. But there will always be someone who thinks they're untouchable. Someone who believes might makes right. And when that happens, someone will have to stand up to them. Will it be us? Maybe. Or maybe it'll be someone else who saw what we did and found their own courage. That's how it works. One person stands up, then another, until the bully realizes they're not untouchable, after all." The Indomitable's engines fired up. The ship pulled away from the station, heading back into deep space. On dozens of worlds, in hundreds of ships, people who had seen G1's broadcast went about their lives. Some were merchants. Some were farmers. Some were scientists. They were ordinary people, living ordinary lives, but now they knew something important. They knew that when faced with impossible odds, when confronted by those who seemed untouchable, there was always a choice. You could surrender to fear, or you could stand up and fight. One human ship had shown them that choice. And the galaxy would never be the same.